So as its president testified before Congress today, that was the scene on Columbia University's campus. Protesters calling on the school to divest from Israel and chanting in coordination, shame.
We will be. The more they try to silence us, the louder we will be. The more they try to silence us, the louder we will be.
They're not alone, by the way. On the other coast, chaos last night at Google's offices. Employees protesting a Pentagon contract, refusing to leave, with police having to step in.
Free, free, free Palestine!
Free, free, free Palestine!
Drop, you say numbers! Drop, numbers! Drop, numbers!
Now, protests continue across the country from those who describe themselves as pro-Palestinian. They're doing so while, in some cases, harassing others and taking no issue whatsoever with ruining the day for many in their communities. For example, earlier this week, the Golden Gate Bridge shut down for hours with drivers forced to sit and wait. Police had to use jackhammers to remove protesters who were chained to barriers. Those are tax dollars at work, by the way. And at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport, passengers of all ages had to ditch their vehicles early and carry their luggage just to make it past protesters who wouldn't let traffic through. So I saw this headline earlier today in the Washington Examiner. I want you to think about this for a second. Think about it for a moment. Does this sound crazy to you? Consider what we've witnessed coast to coast. Make blocking traffic a federal crime. Come on in. I'm Blake Berman. This is The Hill on NewsNation. All right, here we are, here we go. Hanging out with us today, Michael Starr Hopkins is a Democratic strategist. Nan Hayworth, the former Republican Congresswoman from the state of New York. Max Rose, former Democratic Congressman from the state of New York. They'll get along, I promise you. Denise Gitsham is a former aide to George W. Bush and a NewsNation contributor. And Mick Mulvaney, hello to you, sir. Former Trump White House Chief of Staff, NewsNation contributor as well. Hanging out with us, I believe, Mick, in Charlotte today. All right, hello to y'all. Nice to have you in. You see what's going on all across the country. In your state, California. In your state, New York.
Yep.
Used to live in New York.
Yeah.
Mick, they're not in South Carolina yet. Maybe we'll see. But what's the response here, Denise? What should the response here be?
I mean, there's so many things to respond to, and it's been ongoing, and I feel like the reason that we don't have any real action or anything changing, and it's getting more and more chaotic in response to all the anti-Semitic acts that have been taking place, is because that nobody has declared any sense. There's no sense of what's right and what's wrong, and even in how we protest. We can all disagree as to what side of this conflict we fall on. I'm clear on the side that I'm on, but I'm totally fine with someone disagreeing so long as they do so in a way that acknowledges that there are other people and rights at stake and that their right to protest is an absolute.
What's the right response here, Max?
Well, I mean, I didn't see any violence here today, so this is America. You have that constitutional right. I think the Google employees are acting very strangely.
Should they be fired?
I mean, they should do their job, like I just find the whole thing kind of weird. Like they're all extraordinarily privileged and they're making a lot of money and they don't care about unions. They don't care. They don't march for anything along those lines. And suddenly they come out for this issue. It's very weird and there's extraordinary cognitive dissonance. Get fired, not. They're just totally irrelevant.
I mean, yeah, look, if you have a moral obligation or a moral disagreement with what your employer does, then you quit. I mean,
other places to work.
Yeah.
We don't need the police to get in there and arrest you to remove you from your place of work.
No, because that's different than, I would say, blocking a bridge, which I don't support, but I support their idea to be able to protest. There's nothing more American than be able to
protest.
So what about this idea, though, from the Washington Examiner? Make blocking traffic a federal crime. By the way, two Republican senators, Marsha Blackburn, Tom Tillis, have already introduced what's known as the Safe and Open Streets Act that would essentially do just that.
Yes, sir. I think if you are obstructing a federal road, a federal roadway, an interstate, or if you're obstructing access to an airport, that could qualify legitimately as a federal crime, and I would not object to that being penalized harshly as such.
You two good with that?
Absolutely
You're
not. Not a
Why?
chance. I mean, we have enough laws in the books. We don't need to create new laws to over-criminalize behavior. And now do you want to start really having the courts trying to figure out what's protest on a federal road, what's not? You thought January 6th was bad?
But those are
Imagine now trying to figure out.
I'm not for more federal involvement in any state and local issues. They should enforce the law. The Supreme Court has consistently placed content-neutral restrictions. I'm just going back in the common law.
I was just about to say.
Yes, at Georgetown. You know, they've always placed content-neutral restrictions. They have time, place, and setting restrictions, and your right to protest cannot infringe on my right to freedom and movement.
Right.
So there are absolute
no, but it should never.
Go back to the Law School 101.
No,
time, place, and manner restrictions.
100%. The ACLU says on its website, I went and looked, and it said very clearly that you cannot restrict the movement of others.
So,
and you're right.
But
this is the ACLU.
under that logic, he wouldn't have been able. Marchers wouldn't have been able to march through Alabama and not be able to.
I'm telling you what people on your side of the aisle are saying and what the Supreme Court says.
What is the
You can't have a different assessment of what that means.
What is the box, Max, that this has put President Biden in? With his base and with the left, because this is now just it's happening here, sprinkle it in over there. I mean, this is now day after day, week after week, month after month as we see it.
So I think that it's very important to separate where Biden's base is versus where a very small group of folks are at, who literally are protesting against Israel after 300 missiles were lobbed at Israel, which again is just is very odd. That's not where the vast majority of the Democratic base is. Now, don't get me wrong, Democratic base is not blindly pro-Israel and wants Israel held to a standard and certainly wants a cessation of violence and wants the hostages returned, which has been Joe Biden's position. And it does seem, based off what he's recently said, that a ceasefire is imminent. So, but these protests is not. I don't believe that's where the base is at.
He's worried about Michigan.
Right.
He is.
It's gone from Florida to Michigan.
Absolutely.
That's his one-state solution.
Well, good line, Nick. But no, but that is, it is a good line, and it's true. That is his one-state solution, and that is his problem. It's not so much that they are a minority of Americans. They are, but where they are concentrated.
Real quick, think about how insane that is. Donald Trump started his presidency with the Muslim ban, and now we're talking about.
It was not a Muslim ban.
He calls it the Muslim ban every time he goes in front of a crowd.
It was not
now we're talking about whether or not Joe Biden is going to be able to.
Yeah, and they're so
win
upset
Michigan
with him that they're willing to vote for
vote.
Trump. That's what they're saying now. You know, I think the bigger picture here is really, how would you feel if you were anyone of Jewish descent, and you had people all around you unrestrictedly with zero, restraint? Can you imagine any other ethnic group ever coming under this kind of scrutiny for being Jewish? And I have thought, we've seen it in other, and it's not right no matter who it's done to.
By the way,
that's the big point.
I would just note in looking at a lot of these protests, a lot of folks wearing masks.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't care what you wear, but they're wearing masks.
To conceal their identities.
Conceal their identities.
Absolutely.
As they
they're
should,
worried
because it's shameful.
on those college campuses.
Yes, they are.
About being ID'd and getting hired after
and they
graduate.
should be worried. And
all right, live look now at Capitol Hill, where today the House Speaker Mike Johnson released foreign aid measures for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan, totaling some $95 billion. The Speaker just took questions, by the way, from reporters moments ago, saying he is unfazed from Republican opposition.
Listen, my philosophy is you do the right thing and you let the chips fall where they may. If I operated out of fear over a motion to vacate, I would never be able to do my job.
All right, Mick Mulvaney, we're not bringing you off the bench, but come on in as you sat that first panel out. Mike Johnson up today on Capitol Hill. He's moving forward with these spending bills, Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, $95 billion, and the pressure on him from Republicans, some on the right, is ratcheting up. What are you hearing, and where do you think this ends up?
Yeah, he's got all sorts of problems, Blake. Keep in mind, these bills will be coming to the floor under a rule, and I know that's very much inside baseball, but most of the legislation he's passed since he's been Speaker, the big stuff at least, has come under a suspension of the rules, which means you need a much higher threshold. I think it's 2/3 of the body. But he knows he can't get 2/3 of the vote for this, so he has to go through the Rules Committee so that the bill can pass with a simple majority. He does not have the Republican votes in the Rules Committee to get those bills out, which means he'll rely on Democrats to get the bill out of the Rule Committee. That's going to make things a little bit more tense in the room. When a Republican Speaker has to rely on Democrats to get stuff passed, that shows weakness. he's got a real problem with Thomas Massie. I've been following Thomas all day on Twitter, or X, whatever we call it now. Marjorie Taylor Greene is in it for the attention. He's really upset, Thomas Massie, when it comes to the principles of that vote they took last week on warrantless searches of American citizens and so forth.
Okay.
I'd much rather have Marjorie Taylor Greene angry with me than Thomas Massie. Thomas knows how to work the system. Yes, he's a solo practitioner sort of in the House, but he's no dummy. And my guess is Mike's going to have a serious problem in the next 48 hours.
Okay. We have 3 members of Congress here, former, by the way, Mick, Max, Nan. Let's pop them all up because I kind of want to take a poll real quick. Let's just go one by one here. Ukraine, $61 billion, because these spending bills are going to be brought up individually. Mick, you think Ukraine passes, yes or no?
It passes if it passes with a simple majority.
You think it passes, Max? Yep. Nan?
They'll need a lot of Democrat votes, but it will pass with a simple majority with Dem votes.
Israel, $26 billion. I think like 9 or 10 billion of that is humanitarian assistance. You think that passes, Mick?
That passes easily.
Okay. Yeah?
Oh, without a doubt.
So yeah. So it looks like they're going to get stuff done, right? I guess what you're saying, though, Mick, is, and Nan begrudgingly, is this is going to pass, but it's going to pass with Democratic help, and that is the issue for Mike Johnson, is what you're saying.
Yes.
No, it's sort of the issue for Mike Johnson. The other issue is that those bills can't pass the Senate on a standalone basis. The Senate has passed it as a package, and the Senate does not want to break it down into individual pieces. So they're going to have a problem. Now, granted, that's not the House's problem, but just to say the House is going to pass these is not the end of the discussion. Again, I think Mike Johnson is a bigger problem than just the Ukraine funding right now. He's got a circumstance where any 1 or 2 members can bring this motion. Keep in mind, Mike Gallagher leaves on Friday, which leaves, I think, the Republicans with a 1 or 2 seat majority.
Right.
And if the vote comes, Mike Johnson will not have Republican votes to stay Speaker.
Okay. All right. Meantime, up on the Hill today, a hearing on China went off the rails. That is one way to describe it. After Democrats and Republicans brought up corruption allegations against former President Trump and President Biden. Watch.
This is a hearing on China, and you all have an obsession with Russia and Trump. It's disturbing.
We can talk
you
about
need
China
therapy.
and Trump or Russia
you all
and
need,
Trump.
You need therapy, Mr. Raskin.
No. You need therapy. You're the one who's involved with the deranged politician, not me. Somebody needs therapy here, but it's nobody on our side of the aisle, okay?
Because enough.
No,
back to the
honestly,
China hearing. Back to the China hearing.
All right, around the table, what did you hear there?
You want to know why people hate politics? It's because of nonsense like this. And you know what? When we have people who are upset with our speaker because he's able to get bipartisan consensus on things that are helpful and good for our nation, and that's the crux of the issue, is that we have support from across the aisle, what kind of a party and what kind of a country have we become?
I'm just glad I go to therapy after.
I was going to say, did any of the former members of Congress go to therapy, like after serving? No, but what did you hear there with them?
Look, I actually don't think that this is the worst thing in the world.
Right.
Truly.
Just show.
Okay?
Just spectacle show.
Well, look, I first of all, I think there's passion there, very real passion. And more importantly than that, folks are interested. Folks are engaged. There's this very weird contradiction in the United States of America where we say we want people to vote and be excited and engaged, but we want politics to be so boring. And the two just do not coincide in any way, shape, and form. That's passion from 2 public servants, and I think it's a good thing.
I think more people are tuning out than they're tuning in, because when you see this all the time, it's the same nonsense.
That's not true.
Mick, last word to you.
Yeah, the difference is this. 10 years ago, when I did this with Chris Van Hollen about the budget, we yelled and screamed at each other from the House floor, and then we went to have dinner together afterwards. Now those relationships are not there. Those folks really don't like each other, and that's the difference.
Yep. All right. Still to come here on the Hill. A wild scene elsewhere. Not on the southern border, but on a California beach. Why this speedboat raced up on shore and what happened after that. Plus, is it trade war for thee, but not for me? President Biden planning to triple tariffs on Chinese steel. But when Donald Trump imposed tariffs while in office, he was slammed for it. Why is President Biden going further than Donald Trump? You good with that?
Wait, you're calling me out right now?
Yeah. Why you good with that?
I'm not pro-tariff. I don't love tariffs. What I love are investments here at home, and I love the CHIP Act and everything else that the president has done. But trade wars are not the path.
It is a fascinating dynamic, though, because now President Biden doing basically the exact same thing Donald Trump did. We'll get into it on the other side of the break. Plus, Hot Mike with Mick, as an historic impeachment trial took place in the Senate earlier today, lasts for all of about 2 seconds. What Mulvaney is hearing on the other side of the break when The Hill on NewsNation returns.
If that investigation confirms these anti-competitive trade practices, then I'm calling on her to consider tripling the tariff rates for both steel and aluminum imports from China.
That, President Biden speaking in Pennsylvania today to steel workers, as his administration will now look at possibly increasing steel and aluminum tariffs on China, perhaps more than tripling them to 25%. Now, the president has kept all of Donald Trump's China tariffs in place, despite taking this tone during the 2020 campaign.
President Trump may think his being tough on China, all that he has delivered as a consequence of that is American farmers, manufacturers, and consumers losing and paying more. His economic decision-making is so short-sighted.
That was then. This is now, Michael. He's kept all of the tariffs in place, and he wants to go past Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So is Trump right?
No, what the issue with this is that Donald Trump is a chaos agent. So you want to start a trade war with China. You want to go against 50 other million countries and have international conflicts, all while you're trying to do also tax and economics. Like, at some point, you have to focus on stabilizing the country.
So I covered the White House, and it was a trade war when Donald Trump was there. Again, the same policies are in place. And now Biden says today it's not a trade war. It's the same policy going past it.
But we're in a different international arena right now. I mean, we're now seeing unemployment go down. You're seeing wages go up. We're not in the middle of COVID. We're not seeing the same kind of.
What world are you living in?
Chaos agent. Ukraine is on fire. The Middle East is on fire.
Thanks to Donald Trump.
So no. I just want to cut through to this question.
Not at all.
Was Trump right, Max?
Well, I disagree with the policy, but what I will concede is that the Trump administration massively shifted the entire political class to a new economic policy towards China and to a new era of protectionism. There's absolutely no doubt about it. They all agree on the tariffs, and those who disagree with it won't say anything about it. But the truth is that if you are protectionist against one country and one country only, it will not bring jobs back to America. No. It will merely shift jobs to their neighbors. And that's what no one's talking about here.
Yeah. Republicans, before Trump, nobody was for tariffs. We were for free trade. I've always been a free trader. Mm-hmm. And the problem is, instead of looking at ways to incentivize corporations to stay in America, instead of doing all the things that all the other countries are doing to actually attract and create jobs and have a flourishing corporate and, just environment, we try to do everything. Democrats are trying to raise taxes on corporations, thinking that they're somehow charities and they're going to take a hit while the rest of America, ends up paying for it. So you can't have it all. You can't have it all.
Sometimes the facts just really get in the way, though.
Yeah?
Here, it's like, oh my God, the Democratic Party is horrible on jobs.
But it is true. Trump lowered taxes. Denise is right in macro sense. We need to make and I don't disagree with Max at all about the fact that tariffs are not desirable and that members of both parties have found a way to accept them. But Denise is right that we have to make this country the best possible place for business, and right now it's not. And a lot of Democratic policies do have to do with that. Higher taxes on businesses, which they want to do. Trump lowered them. And our energy costs are through the roof. And the so-called green agenda is killing American industry.
So, Mick, is my memory all wrong? Yeah. When I was at the White House and when you were at the White House, I thought I covered a trade war for 2 years, and now all of a sudden I'm told this is not a trade war. Did I miss something?
Yeah. No, I love the discussion because we had these exact same discussions inside the White House. There are folks who are for tariffs, against tariffs, but here's the bottom line on this. The president has pretty much the authority to do exactly what he just said he wants to do. He does not need Congress to do this. And there's no way he's ever going to do it. This was a campaign speech. This was electioneering. They know that if they do this, or if they announce that they're really serious about this, the economy will go down and inflation will go up. And that's the last thing they need. This was designed to be a specific message to a group of people. It's never going to happen.
Okay. All right. By the way, yes or no, you agree with that? It happens or doesn't happen?
Oh, I don't think it actually happens.
Okay. All right. Cool. Meantime, time now for Hot Mic with Mick. Earlier today, the Senate voted to dismiss... Okay, there he is. Get ready, Mick. Let's just cut right to it. Alejandro Mayorkas, that man right there, was Senate trial, lasted all of about 3 seconds earlier today. They took up the 2 articles of impeachment, didn't go forward with it. Democrats in the Senate basically ended it. Was this a waste of time for Republicans, Mick? Yes or no?
I think, generally, I think it was, because, again, I've never been convinced there was a high crime and misdemeanor, but I think that more importantly, this is just another piece of the decorum of the Senate breaking down. There's a lot of senators tonight that are upset that they didn't at least have somewhat of a trial, somewhat of a hearing, and they're already talking about, well, okay, next time you guys impeach Donald Trump over something that we think is political, we're not even going to have a trial. We're going to dismiss it right away. This is a continued breakdown. I think Chuck Schumer, again, they can always say, well, you did it first. It can devolve into sort of that playground sort of, taunting back and forth. I think long-term, this was bad for the country not to at least go through the hearing. We all know how it's going to end, just like we knew how Donald Trump's impeachment was going to end. Mayorkas was never going to leave office. But by virtue of the Senate setting this precedent about not having a hearing, my guess is the next time the Republicans are in charge of the Senate and there's an impeachment they don't like, there'll be no hearing. And I don't think that's a healthy precedent.
Would a hearing just have been a massive waste of time, though? I hear you
Wasn't the Trump hearing a massive waste of time? We knew exactly how it was going to end from the very beginning. The same exact thing. There was no high crimes and misdemeanors. They had done an impeachment inquiry. They found enough evidence to sort of have a vote, and that's it. The Republicans, in hindsight, my guess, are kicking themselves right now that they just didn't dismiss the charges against Trump. So, no, I fear that this was a step backwards today.
If you go back, you run for Congress again, you're elected, and this scenario plays out that Mick describes, are you going to go nuts?
I was thinking about Mick for my chief of staff. Clearly not now. No, look, what a false comparison to say when Donald Trump committed the egregious acts that he did, that it was certainly due not just an impeachment vote, but a full hearing in the Senate, whereas what you have here is there was no issue other than their alleged incompetence of the secretary, and that to me wasn't worth the Senate's time. I think it's a total false comparison.
It was based on violation of his oath to honor the Constitution, and you can disagree with that technically, but the Congress did vote on it. The House did vote to pass that resolution, and I agree with Mick. I think the Senate owed us a trial, even though we all knew what the conclusion would be.
All right, still much more ahead here on the Hill, including new fallout at NPR. The editor who accused the outlet of liberal bias resigns. Now one senator wants to cut federal funding for NPR. Even Elon Musk getting involved right now. So what happens next? And she is about to be the biggest star in the WNBA. She might be there already. But the paycheck for Caitlin Clark will not reflect it. Outrage now over her salary. And even President Biden is seemingly weighing in on this. What's the commander-in-chief saying? We'll show you when The Hill returns. All right, welcome back here to The Hill on NewsNation. Did you happen to see this? In California, beachgoers on Saturday surprised when a speedboat, that boat right there, carrying at least 15 migrants, arrived on shore. It narrowly avoided hitting surfers as it ran aground. It was abandoned on a beach just north of San Diego. In the video, the migrants can be seen fleeing the vessel after it landed. Now, local officials held a press conference on Monday denouncing the beach crossing. They say they're seeing more of this, while leaders in Washington are pressing for increased border protection measures. All right, so he is out at NPR after calling out his own. Yuri Berliner, the NPR editor who accused his employer of liberal bias in an essay last week, has resigned after being suspended by the outlet. Now, the Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn is calling on NPR to be defunded, saying in a statement, in part, quote, "It makes no sense that the American people are forced to fund a propagandist left-wing outlet that refuses to represent the voices of half the country, NPR should not receive our tax dollars. Now, in a social media post, Berliner, who has had a lot to say about NPR in the recent days, says he does not support defunding NPR. Are you good with that step?
Defunding NPR? I already voted for it.
You voted for it once?
Yes, H.R. 1 in the 112th Congress contained provisions to defund NPR and PBS. And
What's the thinking there? What's the thinking?
The thinking was simply that we are in serious arrears with our federal budget, and these entities can sustain themselves. They are not government essential, and they should be privately funded. And if they were, then their editor could do whatever she pleased.
The Corporation for Public Broadcasting, by the way, there are grants that go that you know are divvied out. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting, north of $500 million, $535 million.
But it's 1% of their budget.
The budget it calls for in the upcoming fiscal
year. But it's 1% of their budget, and
for
I'm sure.
NPR, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not that much, and I'm sure George Soros is happy to step in and make them whole.
How many kids learn to read from PBS and
but
learn
nobody's saying they wouldn't exist. Nobody's saying they wouldn't exist.
This is one of those dumb things that people then go run on, and it's defund NPR. But
okay, but then what they should do is get that editor out of, and not Uri Berliner. Get that chief out of there, the CEO. Get her out.
So Mick, you think? Correct me if I'm wrong, but you think that congressional hearings are coming NPR's way?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there's no question about it. In fact, I had that same vote that Nan did. We were in the House together at the same time. I actually put it in my budget in 2017, 18, and 19. Oh, sure. It's not a proper function of government. They don't need the money. They don't need, but they fought it, and the Democrats beat it back, so they still get federal money. Congratulations, you now get the federal money. This means you don't have an excuse not to come down and talk to Congress. This CEO is absolutely going to be hauled into Congress. It's not going to be fun. They're going to bring up her tweets about how much she hates Donald Trump. She's going to say, as she already has this week, oh, that was a long time ago. That was 2016 or 17. I know conservatives who have lost their jobs and lost their reputations over things they said 20, 25 years ago when they were in college. This is going to be a very, very difficult time for this the woman, the CEO at NPR, and they deserve it because they shouldn't be taking the federal money to begin with.
Way to stand up for the really important social justice matters of our day. I mean, this is pennies, pennies, pennies. And it doesn't.
Eventually, they end up to real money.
With it's taxpayer money. There's interest. I'm not saying it should go one way or the other, but it's not.
If we are going to have a conversation about waste in federal spending, I promise you, my colleagues on the right are far more guilty than the Democrats.
Well, let's go through that budget then.
We
I've never met a Democrat that didn't want to spend.
That's not true.
Let's go.
Let Max finish.
I've never met a Republican that didn't want to cut taxes for the wealthy and not pay for it. So
it is not the government's money, Max. It's our money.
It's God bless you with that slogan. The point of this here is that this is a rich tradition that has united Americans for a long time now, and has produced beauty. Now the thing is here is that Mick said is correct, that when you do take federal dollars, you are accountable to our elected officials, and there will certainly be hearings, and people will love to tweet about it, but the funding should continue for this very important organization.
Last word.
Big Bird, I think part of Big Bird is owned by Disney, so I don't have a lot of sympathy for these folks. But, again, if you're going to take the money, there's a price to pay. That's exactly right. So, I've been called a lot worse, believe me, John, Michael. So, look, I look forward to the hearings. It'll be good television that night for us. I
think I speak for all parents. Just don't mess with PBS programming on Saturday and Sunday mornings. We're making our coffee and the kids are staring right at it.
It's a bipartisan issue.
That's bipartisan, I promise you that. All right, speaking of money, Caitlin Clark, she is already a superstar, as you know. Having broken a number of records in the NCAA, she is now taking her talents to the WNBA, going first overall in this week's draft to the Indiana Fever. That pick, no surprise. But many are shocked at how much the new face of women's basketball is going to be paid. Clark's annual salary, which is predetermined by the league's rookie scale, it has nothing to do with her, they set this out in advance, will only be $76,000. Now, even President Biden is weighing in, posting on X, quote, "Right now, we're seeing that even if you're the best, women are not paid their fair share." Denise?
let's go out and support them so that they do get paid. I mean, I am not one to call out. I mean, I went to Wellesley, so, there's this whole thing where I feel like, I've seen how women have not been paid equal. But this is not one of those issues. This is a supply and demand issue. And so once we start going out and buying those tickets and supporting these women, I've never been to a WNBA game, have you?
You gonna go?
Yeah. I mean, I've never been. Yes, I cannot wait. I'm so excited about Caitlin.
I'm a big market fan, so this should resolve itself in the markets. But I will say, when studies have been done, serious studies, analyzing the data about the pay gap between women and men, almost all of it is accounted for by the fact that women's work styles are different than those of men, and they tend to want more in the way of, gig employment or self-employment, setting their own schedules, things like that. So the pay gap is a very politicized issue. It's not really a very meaningful issue when it comes to actuality. President Biden's doing this because, of course, he wants women to say, "Oh, I'll vote for Joe Biden because he's going to pay everybody more."
I don't know about where to touch that one, but I will say Caitlin Clark has been a great role model for women. The fact that we have Hill staffers getting paid as much as the number one pick in the WNBA is problematic. And I hope that over the next however many years, we see a huge increase in not just her pay, but support for the WNBA for all of us.
Well, I'd like to see Hill staffers get a raise, too. But there is a problem in terms of how their salaries are actually negotiated, in the sense that on the male side, they get a significant share of revenue, and that's not the case on the for women's basketball. So that's
TV revenue is obviously different, and the WNBA
there's
contracts coming up here.
There's absolutely no doubt that we're looking at totally different revenue numbers, but that's an egregiously low number, and I think that you're going to see all of this change with the visibility that her stardom is bringing to it.
Feels like
that's a good thing.
It feels like a Tiger Woods moment, like what Tiger did for golf. Mm-hmm. It almost feels like what she's doing to women's basketball, and how seemingly it'll all change for decades. By the way, when you're just looking at the numbers here, just where they are, the first pick in the NBA draft, $10.1 million. The NFL, around $7 million. Again, this is all like collectively bargained out, and you can see where the other leagues stand down there. Caitlin Clark going to be making about $76,000. All right, still to come here from the Hill. You are looking live right now at Capitol Hill. Some lawmakers today received a classified briefing on UFOs. There's the Hill. One lawmaker who attended that briefing will tell us if he is satisfied with what he heard. Classified briefing. We'll get it from Tim Burchett on the other side of the break. And could Prince Harry face deportation from the U.S.? What is this all about? And believe it or not, how it relates to politics. You're watching The Hill. You're on NewsNation. Stay with us.
Bill O'Reilly on Cuomo.
I don't say it often, but Bill O'Reilly, you're spot on.
TV's liveliest, most honest debate.
And I enjoy doing this with you. I would never tell anybody that, Cuomo, so keep it just between you and me, okay?
Tonight at 8, 7 Central, only on NewsNation.
His karate lessons might not turn him into a black belt. Hi-ya! And even after band camp, he might not be the greatest musician. But with the 3% annual percentage yield you can earn on a PenFed premium online savings account, your goal of supporting his dreams...
Thanks for everything, Mom and Dad.
...will always be worth it. Apply today at PenFed.org/savings. Federally insured by NCUA. $5 minimum to open account. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed.
PenFed's got great rates for everyone.
Moonwalk through the 80s and 90s on Rewind TV.
This is a big deal!
Your favorite sitcoms from the 80s and 90s are all in one place. Rewind TV. Just go to rewindtv.com and check it out.
My name is Joel, and I came to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in December of 1987 to be treated for osteosarcoma, which is bone cancer. We didn't know anything about St. Jude. We didn't know what they meant, or that, when we got here, what we would do, how it would be taken care of. And when we arrived, we found out that my family wasn't going to have to pay for any of my treatment, not for my medicine, not for travel, not for housing, not for food. St. Jude was going to cover all that. St. Jude supported me in every way, from, taking that financial burden off my parents to making sure that all of my family was included in this time. St. Jude literally means everything to me. I get to go home to my family tonight. I get to cook dinner for them. That's what you're giving. You are giving us everything by supporting St. Jude. So thank you so much.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
This is Kelly Meyer. Get my podcast, Kelly in the Capitol, at newsnationnow.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Sundays on NewsNation.
I am Chris Stirewalt, and we are joined by a superb panel today.
Political editor Chris Stirewalt takes you inside the halls of Washington to break it all down.
We can get back to a politics in America where people don't question each other's motives and question each other's patriotism.
Watch The Hill Sunday with Chris Stirewalt every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern on NewsNation, America's fastest growing cable news network. To find NewsNation on your screen, go to joinnn.com.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Veterans, do you wear glasses or use hearing aids? VA healthcare may cover both of those for you at no or low cost. You may even be eligible for free dental care at one of VA's more than 200 dental clinics. Sign up at va.gov, call 1-800-MyVA411, or visit your nearest VA medical center.
Over the years, you've brought them into your home. You were prescribed opioids after the C-section and after Dad's back injury. They helped when you were in pain, and you held on to them just in case. But did you know holding on to unused opioids puts your family at risk? Trouble with opioids can start at home with unused medicines such as pills, patches, and syrups. You can remove the risk and protect your family. Find out how at www.fda.gov/drug disposal.
For some children, a single surgery can turn an untreated cleft into a smile for life. But at Smile Train, we understand that most children need a little extra care. They need medical, dental, and emotional resources to grow healthy and strong, to express themselves clearly, and to navigate all of life's challenges so that their smiles light up the room as brightly as possible. Visit SmileTrain.org to learn how Smile Train is supporting the cleft community with lifelong smiles.
Life is full of moments, including difficult and disruptive ones like a cancer diagnosis, which is why the groundbreaking work of Stand Up to Cancer is so vital. They bring together top minds from different fields to find new and better treatments so patients can thrive. Please join Stand Up to Cancer and Myrtle Beach to help families get back to where they belong, making new memories for years to come. Go to standuptocancer.org to see how you can join the mission.
Commonly known as UFOs. It comes as lawmakers continue to push for transparency from the Pentagon. Joining us now is Republican Congressman Tim Burchett. He attended that classified briefing. Congressman, great to see you and talk with you as always. Thanks for being back with us here on the Hill. So it's classified. I know you can't get into details. We get that. We understand it. But after being in that briefing and now you're out of it, were you satisfied with what you heard?
No, it's always compartmentalized. We can't get to certain things. I don't really think of these people are lying. I think there's a lot of arrogance that kind of whirls around this so-called intelligence community. But what they do is they've compartmentalized it so that each department, they can only answer your question up to a certain point, and you can't get everybody in the skiff at the same time to answer the question. So no, I was almost falling asleep in the meeting. It was just so mundane and boring, and a lot of the things they told us, they explained some things that went on that were just like, okay, well then why are you having to tell us this in the skiff? Why can't you tell the American public that? And it's just
so. Do you think
complete disinformation? Go ahead.
Do you think your time spent on this, because there's a lot of time that you and the rest of the UAP caucus have spent to try to get answers, and every time I speak with you, Congressman, when you go to these classified briefings, you walk out and you're disappointed. And I wonder if you think that this is a waste of time. Do you feel that there's a cover-up going on, something in between? What is it?
Yeah, I think there's a cover-up. There's tens of millions of dollars that we spend investigating these things. We've had departments tell us that they have recovery units, but yet they won't release full reports. Everything's covered up. Your reports look like somebody shot it with a 12-gauge shotgun. So of course I think there's a cover-up. What it is, I don't know. I've said many times, it's not about the little green men or the flying saucers. It's about what the heck are they spending all this dadgum money on, and why won't they release it? That's the real questions that need to be asked. And until we have a commander-in-chief that'll release them, I don't think we're going to get them.
Why do you think there's a cover-up?
A lot of reasons. If say it is extraterrestrial, there's a lot of money to be made from somebody else's technology that you don't have to spend any money to get. And there might be the fact they don't understand what's going on, and there might be the fact that it's just plain arrogance, and they don't think we deserve it. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with high-ranking officials that have told me that America really can't handle this stuff, Congressman. We really just need to be real careful about it. And it's not their position to tell me who or what I can handle. We're Americans. We ought to be able to take it. Give it to us. I'm tired of it.
Real quick, Congressman, what's next?
Well, hopefully we'll have some hearings about this. They're just trying to run the clock out, which we said they were going to do. And we'll keep, as long as some of us are still in Congress, they don't run us off, we'll continue trying to get the answers. And look, I just want transparency. That's what you and the media ought to ask for. That's what the taxpayers should ask for. Just give me some dadgum transparency.
Congressman Tim Burchett, UAP caucus, we got to leave it there. Thank you, sir. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, brother.
Mick, Max, Nan, three former members of Congress.
Yeah.
I'll start with you since you're the one chuckling, Mick. What did you hear there, and do you think there's any sort of end that Congress will get to with this?
No, I think they have to do what they do. They have to keep trying, so I appreciate that. But I think I know what Max and Nan are thinking, which is that sounds like every single classified briefing we went to were in the House. I never saw anything in a classified briefing that I hadn't seen on television. So
they're basically data dumps, right? They're basically data dumps. I mean, they would have a bunch of people come in. Checking the box to say they informed Congress. That's it. Exactly. We've got an observer here, an installation here, blah 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 blah. But no broader overview.
Yeah, I mean it's all really all open source information, and this is administration agnostic. There's just a tremendous amount of arrogance that emerges when individuals occupy the executive branch. And they begin to look at Congress as a nuisance of sorts that they have to just do the bare minimum for. And that has happened continuously, and that certainly is the case in these intelligence briefings, but it will never stop members of Congress at fundraisers from claiming that they understand intimate national security details that no one else knows. They will always hawk that
Can we just
line.
get more Tim Burchett emails? I agree with him on
this close.
Anything, but
we're this close to getting Max to be a deep stater. I'm telling you, he's almost there. So.
Tim Burchett's a national treasure.
I listen to him talk all day.
Before we came back from commercial break, Max said to me, "I hope we're getting a Tim Burchett interview." I said, "Stand by. Here we go. You're about to get it." All right. Meantime, Prince Harry. Yes, Prince Harry. Back in the spotlight today. Oh, we going to break? Is there music? Nope. Prince Harry, back in the spotlight today. Check out this headline. Prince Harry changes country of residence in new filing. Now, the timing here is a bit interesting, as the former prince, or Prince Harry, could be kicked out of the United States for lying about his alleged drug use on his visa application. In his memoir, Spare, the Duke of Sussex confessed to using drugs. But now the Biden administration, potentially stepping in here as the U.S. ambassador to the United Kingdom, says Prince Harry won't be deported, reportedly, while Donald Trump isn't being as kind.
He didn't.
If they know something about the drugs, and if he lied, you'll have to take appropriate action.
Appropriate action?
Yeah.
Which might mean not staying in America.
I don't know. You'll have to tell me. You just have to tell me.
Why are we talking about Prince?
I mean, what kind of a ridiculous double standard is it when we allow millions of people to stay here and we focus on one royal? You poor thing, Harry. You're being unfairly targeted.
Unfairly targeted?
I'm trying to make a point. Let's focus on the millions that are coming over that we have no background on instead of somebody who, look, the right hates.
Let's legalize marijuana and stop talking about ridiculous drug policies.
I think probably the British ambassador has begged us to keep him. And we are for accommodating our ancient ally.
Nick, I think you're probably good on this. I'm not sure you want to chime in on the prince, but thank you, sir. We'll talk to you again soon. I think see you tomorrow. Oh, did you want to?
Come on, Nick.
Did you want to?
No, I'll see you tomorrow. So.
All right, we'll catch you tomorrow, Nick. Thanks so much, buddy. All right, coming up here on The Hill, his name is Dwayne Chapman, but you know him as Dog the Bounty Hunter. He is out with a new book and talking to Leland Vitter. Leland joins us on the other side of the break. Stay with us. All right, welcome back here to The Hill. So Dwayne Chapman is the hit star of the popular reality TV show Dog the Bounty Hunter. It ended in 2012. In that show, viewers watched him and his family hunt down people who broke their bail agreements. Now, during the arrest, Chapman also tried to inspire the same fugitives to start over and live a better life. He recently opened up about his own personal redemption story, which he's outlined in a new memoir, 9 Lives and Counting, a bounty hunter's journey to faith, hope, and redemption. And tonight, he is speaking with Leland Vitter.
At your service.
This is an interesting one.
Yeah, it is. And, God, let's talk about a guy who's lived an interesting life and seen lots of interesting things. He's going to follow up on some of Brian Enton's reporting in Oklahoma, northern Oklahoma, this God Misfits group. Dog the Bounty Hunters have gone out and gone after a lot of groups like this, especially in towns and in counties in rural America where a small group, turns out of criminals, end up basically controlling the town. That's what's happened in Oklahoma. We're going to check in with Brian. Believe it or not, the judge he interviewed was forced to resign. So these are some of the groups that Dog's gone up against before. We'll talk to him about that.
When I found out you had him on the show today, I was like, that's awesome.
There you go.
Pretty cool. Looking forward to it. Have a great show, brother.
All right, buddy.
Appreciate it. That does it for us here on The Hill. Thanks for watching.